Bottom line is you can carry your music with you.
And that's the thing. You don't even need storage anymore. That's the thing. I don't have any music on my phone anymore.
Well, that's true now.
Nice.
Nowadays.
Yeah,
which is even easier. We have a news flash today. Yeah.
Do we know?
Yeah, I mean, big news.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What's that?
I don't even think people realize how big this is. They don't realize it. They can't possibly realize it.
I clicked.
I feel like I'm trying to make one of those reels on, on Facebook, or what do you call it, a TikTok
Top
video.
10 things you won't believe.
They just
nobody
drag
wants you
it
to know
out for
about.
like 3 minutes until all of a sudden whatever's going to happen happens, and it's like it's like a joke. Every time. Okay, now we're shaking up the bottle of pop. Now let's see what's going to happen. Oh, wait a minute. Wait.
And they're 3 minutes and 1
Susie's got to
second.
get a Q-tip. All right, now we're shaking the bottle.
Q-tip.
I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't sound exciting.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like you realize that this is going nowhere at some point, right? This one's going somewhere. What is it? Yeah, what the news flash is all about. What people don't realize is that our headphones are currently in what you term an industrial revolution.
Yeah,
that's the period of headphones right now. The industrial revolution. It's kind of like, remember back in the day when they started making Ford Model Ts?
I do not.
And I don't either. But that Henry Ford made the assembly line. I mean, things were happening. People were realizing they could drive a car somewhere instead of riding a horse or walking.
It came down to cars existed before the Model T.
Well, that's true.
But the Model T made it available to the masses.
Yeah, and see, like here, that's the thing, right? Headphones have existed for a long time, obviously, but we're in a revolution now where now they're becoming mainstream. They're becoming part of the norm for audio everywhere in the world, and it's pretty cool.
There's a bit to talk about here. Because although headphones weren't exactly scarce 20 or 30 years ago, the difference was they were kind of meaningless to most people. They were a tool to produce audio, which you could allege is the same today. However, what people looked at in a headphone is, do they work? Are they cheap? Do I have them with me? And that was about it, right? Whatever you had, whatever came with your Walkman or something, that's what most people use. The vast majority, very few, other than physical damage, would replace their headphones.
Yeah, remember back in the day, we were good with JetBlue giving us those blue headphones on the plane.
Well,
they're free. It's great. We can watch it. Yeah, hey, got audio.
You go to the dollar store.
Yeah.
And it became like trendy and fashionable just to use the stock the earbuds that came with your iPod, right?
Yeah, right.
And everybody just used them until they broke and they bought a new pair.
Yeah, they came in the box with the iPad.
Around that era was probably somewhere in the range of the start, somewhere in there, I would say, because the trouble is it's a combination of factors. It's not just headphones. It's the entire system.
You had to have music.
We are where we are today
music.
Because of everything slowly advancing around the headphones, causing the headphones to kind of sort of have a demand to advance.
Well, that's true. The lack of a fixed point where you didn't have to be in a room tied to equipment plugged into the wall.
Right.
That's dramatic because now
the biggest leap probably is a cell phone.
It fits.
Yeah, the phone. I was going to say smartphones, especially like iPod started it.
Right.
But then when an iPhone or any other smartphone came out, then it had so much functionality. You could stream and it did everything else.
Bottom line is you can carry your music with you.
And that's the thing. You don't even need storage anymore. That's the thing. I don't have any music on my phone anymore.
Well, that's true now.
Nice.
Nowadays.
Yeah,
which is even easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, back in the day, you were tied to a room. You had to be near a wall outlet,
right?
For the most part,
Well, you look at the barriers to entry, and what we used to have was pretty severe. You had to curate your own music. You had to know what music you liked. You had to discover artists and all these things on your own independently. You have to have the hardware. You have to bring it with you, and it was a separate piece you wouldn't normally carry. And on top of that, the quality was kind of mediocre when you got your $40 or $30 Walkman and recording stuff off the radio.
I mean, cassettes.
Right. It's not great.
Walkman and cassettes were really popular, back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, but compared to today, you look at now, the vast majority of people in developed countries already have a cell phone with an internet connection. So you could download an app, and for free, you could have music services that stream you anything you want, pretty much, and they curate it for you. They help you to discover music. So you already have this tool. You're already carrying it around with you. And you look at headphones. You have a lot of portable stuff that offers you advantages, noise canceling and things like that. So maybe you're in a loud environment. You're frequently spending time on a train in public transit or something like that where maybe the outside environment isn't so exciting and you don't want to deal with it.
Douglas, can you Google and look up how many, if there's an easy way to tell how many Walkmans they sold?
Sold over 400 million units since their first release. And 200 million of those were the cassette players.
So I wonder how many Apple sold of their...
Apple sold 100 million AirPods in just 2020.
Jeez. Right.
Yeah,
right.
And how many iPhones did they sell? That's, you know.
Well, yeah, right. Well, that's number's huge.
200 million a year.
The situation.
And of course, beyond that, in most countries, people don't use iPhone because of the cost. So 200 million iPhone sales a year annually is pretty severe because it's probably five times that in Android devices globally, or maybe more.
But I mean, what you got to think about is the scope of the reach of this. A lot more people.
Well, we do
than we used to. Well, not relatively speaking. No, I don't.
Not a big enough difference.
No, it's not like there's 10 times the market out there now. Okay, now I guess you got to look at it another way. That's true. There's a lot of developed countries. Back then, there were a lot of countries that weren't developed like they are today. Like one of them's China. Right. The market there didn't exist for these type of products. Now it's probably one of the largest, if not the largest.
Well, that's definitely a factor. Because no doubt the demand is growing, partly because of the availability, but partly because there's just more people that are in a segment of the population that can now tolerate these costs, that are interested in that, and that are looking for something along those lines, looking for portable audio.
Yeah, the world's economies have really come up compared to where it was back 30, 40 years ago.
Well, and it's a lot of people living in cities trying to just disconnect from the rest of the world. They want to isolate themselves, when they're...
You get a bit of that too, yeah. There wasn't so much of the big cities 50 years ago compared to where we are today, but oddly enough, we're kind of almost in a shift back.
But I mean, think about that. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it that you're selling people, 200 million people a year, a device that plays audio. It's just made to listen to music with. 200 million a year.
It's fairly expensive too by most standards. If you look 20 years ago, $100 or $200 for headphones would be considered crazy. People would think there's something wrong with you if you said, I spent $200 on headphones 20 years ago.
Right. But, well, like if you upgraded your iPod's earbuds and you said I spent $200 on these at that time, it would be like, whoa, that's almost as much as the iPod, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And here we are at the upper end of things with what we do. But see, we're a small niche company.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. We're not Apple, obviously. Nobody's Apple. Let's just set
Apple.
Yeah, let's just set that straight. There's nobody like Apple.
Well, they happen to be a very large business, in fact. Yeah. Allegedly the largest.
Yeah, and then when they entered the headphone space, they became the largest headphone manufacturer.
Weren't they first to hit a $1 trillion market cap?
Yes.
First company ever in history of the planet. So
they're a very large company.
Yeah, rather. So.
Yeah, but it makes sense. You look at the slow changes that we had over the years. There's more demand. There's more availability. Prices are sort of moving up and down at the same time, which kind of shows you the maturity of the market. There's kind of a product for everybody, it seems. If you want better, you have it available. But if you just want cheap, that stuff is better than ever, and it's still available. So, I mean, it makes sense. There's products that fill most people's needs, and music, I think, is a big factor as well, because you have the availability of almost everything you want, and it's in your pocket all the time for low to no cost.
Hence the revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, like literally every niche has to be filled at this point. Like from $5 to $5,000, like every single price point.
There's a product for you.
It's almost confusing at some point when you think about it.
You can't keep up with all the models.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess basically most people probably relegated to what pops up on Amazon, right? You search for a headphone on Amazon, right? What pops up, and they're going to show the most popular or whatever they say.
5-star reviewed things,
Yeah, right. And it's going to be
Amazon recommended.
Who knows what it'll be? Yeah, I don't know what it'll be.
Yeah.
Probably some brand you never heard of before.
Could be.
Because that's what they make the most profit on or something like that, or that's what sells the most because it's
you could see the issues there.
Price point.
That's why people like Linus, a fairly big YouTube tech review type person, is trying to get into a bit more technical side of headphones with the lab, and it makes sense to some extent. Obviously, there's demand for something like this because there is so much diversity. There's not 10 or 20 products. There's thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of different models and variants and configurations of headphones. So how do you know which one's good? Which one should I buy? And it is a very difficult question, one that's nearly impossible to answer.
Yeah.
And it's changing constantly.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You measure one headphone and then it's 3 months later, it's already obsolete.
Right.
You know, and on the lower end of things, those things tend to change like
Yeah,
crazy.
they change all the time.
High rotation, yeah.
Yeah, because it's just the tech. I don't know what it is. We're at, who knows what it is. But they just keep.
I'm sure it's
they
more than
keep
one
adding,
factor.
They
Yeah.
keep adding dot ones to stuff. 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3.
There's always some
features.
reason to change something.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it makes a lot of confusion for the consumer. But most people just kind of buy something, and if they're happy with it, they keep using it. But it is very difficult to make a very informed decision in the low end to the mid range because there's just so much choice. To some extent, it's easier in the high end because you could go to a show and you could listen to the 5 or 10 different models in that range. And you could try which one works the best for me, which one do I like, which one
Or even
is
some of
built
the
way I
some
like.
of the larger headphone dealers around the world will tend to have most of them
Yeah.
if you can find them. You
Yeah.
know, like
There's a handful of large dealers that will have
Yeah.
everything.
there's one guy that we work with, Stefan over at Audiophile Artisans Amsterdam. He's in Amsterdam, and he's got an extensive library of electronics and headphones. But I mean, people it seems like Amsterdam's a hub because a lot of people seem to go through there, and they tend to try to set a few hours aside to go to his place. From what I hear, from all over the world. But bottom line is that it's to see a guy like that, you walk in there and you could spend hours there and still not really have a full grasp on because all of a sudden you explore a whole new world, right? The high-end headphone world with multi-$1,000 headphones and amplifiers. You think about that, like if you've never done that before, it'd be like walking into a room full of diamonds. Let's say you're a woman and diamonds and gold are popular, jewelry, Then you go in there, or you think about one of the movies, some of the movies what's his name? Harrison Ford, where they're looking for the goblet, whatever. They go into that one, whatever, it's cave or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all gold and gems and that's kind of, I think, what if you were into audio and you walked in a room like that full of things, I don't know how long you could stay there before they'd have to drag you out. You think about it, it's an experience.
Well, I mean, even for us, like when we go to the local dealer, it's like you even know what you're probably going there to listen to, and then it's like, oh man, we've been here for 4 hours.
Yeah.
We got to get out of here, and you're not even looking at
Yeah,
anything.
we went to look at two things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on up here, check out these new speakers we got
right.
up there. Oh, we want to check out this amp? And, let's throw the subs on there and see what it does. Next thing you know,
Yeah,
the
we're not
afternoon
even
is
looking for many things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're just trying everything, yeah.
You start pulling through some music, you start pulling out different albums and stuff, or get out, or if, heaven forbid that you got to use Tidal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no. The point is, yeah, it's this. Hence the revolution. It is. It's here,
well,
and it exists.
I mean, especially on the music side, normally it used to be like you sit there and you're like, all right, what do I want to listen to? And then you just draw a blank. But now it's like pre-curated, playlists, and you just next, this is good, this is good. Then you just forget that you're just like listening to music, and you're just like 2 hours go by and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
just because how convenient it is.
And from a business standpoint, I mean, I've seen studies that people do research papers on, what's going to be popular or where the business model's going in the next 5, 6, 7 years. And headphones are considered a rather large growth industry. I mean, they're probably at least 15, 20% a year over year, in terms of just the raw dollars that are generated from the personal audio space. So, they're saying that we're good to at least 2028 when it comes to just constant growth. And I mean, obviously, it's difficult to forecast out past that far, but that's pretty good news for anyone involved in this, for both the consumer and the manufacturers. Because we need each other.
Yeah, it's nice because like when Apple went lossless, then it forced Amazon for their music to go lossless, so everything
totally.
got better. You know?
Isn't Spotify the only holdout or something like that now? Someone is.
Oh, I don't know.
Now I hear people bitching, going, "Oh, it doesn't sound nearly as good as Tidal in my car," you know, because now everybody's high res except for the one, I forget who, you know, and people are noticing it in their cars.
Yeah.
Someone said, "Oh, I got a Model 3. I don't know where I saw it. I got a Model 3, and Tidal sounds way better than," I think he said Spotify, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it only does Spotify, Slacker, and Tidal.
Yeah. So he said it sounds way better. He had the upgraded stereo system in the car, whatever that is. And but I mean, people are noticing it in their car.
It is noticeable.
I mean, that's kind of that's not norm. That's not the norm when you think about it. It's most of the time the cars are just dumbed down versions.
Well, like everything, because of demand, everything's improving, and the reason why we're seeing better headphones is because people are interested in better headphones. People are willing to pay more for better headphones. And the entire industry is kind of sort of evolving around the demands of the customer. So with time, you'll see that. And you're seeing an evolution in car audio and cars in general now. You're getting more connectivity, you're getting more features, and some cars, even like Model 3 and all the other Teslas, will do streaming audio and stuff. So you don't even need to deal with curating your music.
Yeah, and the systems they're putting in cars are far more sophisticated than ever.
They continue to improve.
You know, they build it around the acoustic of the car, multiple drivers, DSP. I mean,
like 18 individual amps. Like
Yeah,
back in
right.
the day, it was like 2 watts a channel, 4 channels in
like-
this little box.
like
you know?
Velcroing a freaking amp under the dash, shove it in there, hope it
Yeah.
stays there.
Well, in the early days, it was one speaker. They
Yeah.
just shoved it somewhere in the car, one driver.
Yeah.
Right? It was
Well, yeah,
terrible.
that's really early days.
But it continued to advance from there, and now we're at the point where one of the few features you could add to a car that actually provides the customer with a value is better audio. People
No
notice that, right? And it's easy enough to do. Apparently, people are finding ways to do it cheap, so it's cool.
Yeah,
We're seeing that stuff.
And then with the better source materials, with the streaming and stuff you could do with the cars, you're able to show that off. Like that was probably the biggest problem in the past was
AM radio,
FM.
yeah.
Yeah, it's limited. I mean, it's okay. FM could sound good, but not in a car.
Well, now they got HD, which helps out.
Right. Totally. Yeah. They're up to 15 kilohertz. now.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to the radio, more often than not, it's not going to be the exact music you want. So there is a little bit less time you're going to want to spend with it. You're going to be less inclined to feel pressured into looking for a bit more sonic fidelity. But with streaming and stuff like that, with Bluetooth on your phone and CarPlay and those sorts of things, Android Auto, you can listen to what you want with ease. And it makes sense that you're going to be looking for more performance in your car.
I think back in the day, I remember when I was young, a lot of the cars came with a single mono speaker, one speaker on the middle of the dash.
Yeah.
That was the stereo, you know. And then
It's terrible.
if you had 2 speakers and you actually had stereo, yeah. But I mean, you think about it back then. I mean, you're talking about the 70s and stuff, right? Or even 60s too. But back then, for most people, that was their only source of audio. I mean, other than going to see a live band or something like that, that was it, you know, or someone in a family played an instrument, but that was it. That was their, I mean, you think about it, there was no, the infiltration of audio playback, of personal audio, or didn't exist at all. I mean, it was just, you know, if you bought a transistor radio that took a battery and you were picking up AM or FM and you set that on your windowsill, that was your source of audio back then. That was it. I mean, you got to think about that, right? Where we are today, how good things are, and then even when you take it to the extreme like these things, how good it can get versus the options you had back then. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, you didn't have any good options.
No.
Now even like a small Bluetooth speaker is pretty good, relatively speaking, you know,
Yeah,
for the
right.
size, you know.
It would blow away anything
Yeah,
from
compared
that
to like
era.
the Victrola.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a horn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a
Yeah.
$30 Bluetooth speaker and it obliterates that thing in
Yeah.
performance.
In almost every category you could think of.
Right.
Yeah. So it's crazy where we are now with audio, and it, you know, it's obviously we're at a point now where I think it's almost getting logarithmic because, you know, because of everybody piling on.
Well, everybody
Yeah.
expects better audio. That's the thing. So when you hear something that doesn't have up to snuff audio, you're like, I don't like this. You know?
Yeah, we got to do a video on that future video on that. We got to talk about that. How well trained people are at listening to audio.
Yeah.
They way more than they can imagine, ever were before, which is awesome. Which is what
The
bringing them.
experience is so very different now compared to what you had back in the day.
Yeah, the learning curve is like from 2, 8, just the kid's first year I don't know when kids are starting to listen to headphones, but it's probably pretty early.
Pretty early compared
You know?
to 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah. So, where before, when I was a kid, you sat on the floor and you listened to the console TV with the, playing.
Yeah, it sounded awful.
And if you had 2 speakers, you were doing pretty good. We had a turntable and a AM/FM radio and our big long 7-foot console TV.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was it. That was probably high. That back then, that's what they called high fidelity.
Uh-huh.
2 paper speakers with whizzer cones. And you know what? To me, when I was a kid, it sounded pretty good.
Yeah, but you hear it now.
It's not bad. I've heard one that was rebuilt 10, 15 years ago, and you got to sit on the floor to listen to it because that's where the speakers are. They're a foot off the ground. But it actually brings you back to when you were young again. It's the same sound, but those paper we had, agreed, it's limited. So what you got to do is you got to play music from the 60s.
Well, yeah.
And you're good to go. Yeah, that's it. So that's the solution. If you want to listen to gear from the 60s, you got to play the music that was made on that gear back then.
It helps.
It helps a lot. Don't forget to subscribe to us because we want to hit 20,000 in a year. And like us, thumbs us up, like us. Take care, everyone.